So I'll go ahead and read the Second Mindfulness Training. There's many parts to it, and just to bring it back to our awareness. True happiness. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. And I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see the happiness and suffering of others is not separate from the happiness, my own happiness and suffering. That true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasure can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and stop contributing to climate change. And in the little book, The Mindfulness Survival Kit, I kind of drew from that today. Thich Nha Hanh points out that the aim of this second mindfulness training is to end craving. And great amounts of injustice and suffering are generated by the human fear of not having. Our craving for material goods and comfort increases the consumer market. It supports extraction and tolerates military invasion of other countries to obtain the resources that we need to create our material wealth. Thus, he points out, craving leads to the destruction of our environment and the pollution of the water, soil, air, which sustain our lives, in which as Indigenous people in our deeper roots, we have actually vowed on some level to care for these. And because of craving, we allow poverty and hunger to exist, and we won't have enough, afraid that we won't have enough for ourselves, or at least all that we want, if everyone has what they need. Our cravings justify our sense of privilege and the right to have more freedom, money, and access to resources and services than other people have. But when we are able to use mindfulness to come home to the present moment, we realize how many conditions for happiness we have right now. Free of craving, we no longer need to imagine happiness can only come in the future after we have achieved or acquired something different than what we have right now. And each of us makes our own criteria for our happiness. And we may need to release our ideas about what will make us happy in order to allow happiness to actually enter our lives. To be good practitioners, we must sit down and examine our ideas of happiness. We can practice contentment and gratitude, letting go of our cravings and attachments to see what we believe we need to be happy. When our minds have love and understanding, we actually have happiness. If we have eyes to see all the forms and colors of life, our eyesight is a huge condition for happiness. To have time to sit and enjoy breathing, to listen to the birds or the wind moving through the trees, to hug loved ones, to eat healthy food. When we can open all these doors, then happiness can come into our lives from many, many directions. And the two concrete practices that Thich Nha Hanh gives in this little book, the first one is this practice of remembering the conditions of happiness. And he suggests that we find a quiet spot in nature or in the corner of our home and sit and follow the breath coming into ourselves and let go of all ideas that only something in the future can bring us happiness. And focus on and write down all the wonderful things that your body, mind, and environment hold to blossom happiness right in this moment. And he says, you may find enough to fill more than one piece of paper. And the second practice that he suggests is, he told the story of there being a time when they needed nails at Plum Village. So he told the children that they were going to go shopping with the intention of buying only the nails and nothing else. And however, that they would get to look at all the items in this, that were there for sale in order to learn about them and where they came from, and that they would take moments to meditate on the suffering that may have resulted from the production of what they see in the store. And he gave the example, for instance, if an item was very cheap, they would consider whether the worker who produced it had been paid a fair price. And he says everyone can educate themselves and their children by shopping mindfully and sharing with each other what they have learned. And I'll end with his words, what makes us truly happy can't be found in the marketplace.